Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to day 2 of extendsConf. Y'all, yesterday was so good. We loved seeing all of y'all popping up and contributing to the conversation and rallying around the presentations. And oh man, it just was so heartwarming to have everybody together in one place at one time for a minute. And so thank y'all for being here. It brings us so much joy. To kick off this morning, I am excited to share with y'all a conversation that I had with John Champ of Pixel Cave. John is one of the most successful authors in the Envato marketplace. If there's such a thing as a celebrity among theme developers, he is one. And so I reached out to him just because I was curious. I'm curious about the humans behind companies and products, and I was curious to hear his story and just make his acquaintance. But the more we talked, the more he was describing kind of how he thinks about building and selling themes, the more I was starting to draw parallels in my head to my own work as a Craft plugin developer and to lots of the growth in the Craft ecosystem. And so, you know, I started thinking, I know a lot of people in the Craft community who I think would be interested to hear this perspective from someone who is not in the Craft community. So John was gracious enough to allow me to share some of our conversation with y'all, and so please enjoy. Well, welcome to extendsConf. John, thank you.
Hi, really happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Man, how are you this morning? This afternoon. How are you this afternoon?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah.
You're fresh off of, I guess, your workday, and specifically, you have just launched Tailkit. Fixing to talk about Tailkit. Congrats on that. How's it going?
Thank you. Really great. We're very happy. We're eventually released it yesterday after almost 6 months, and it was a milestone for us because it is our first project we self-publish, our first big project we self-publish.
Congrats. I look forward to talking to you about that, but first let's get back to the basics. So I know you through your Envato themes. You and your wife run Pixel Cave, and you make themes like Codebase, and before that Dashmix, and before that One UI, and many others. Those are the ones that I have used. And it's mostly like app scaffolds and dashboard kind of themes.
Exactly.
And I think you have many others. How many themes do you have on out there in the world?
Okay, I think now with Tailkit we reached the 13th big project from start to till now, but the main projects we're working on right now and supporting are 3 on Envato. These are One UI, Dashmix, and Codebase, and now Tailkit.
And now Tailkit. Cool. Lucky 13th. How did you
Exactly.
tell me again kind of the story of how you got started in the theme business? Like what's your story?
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. First of all, me and my spouse Stella have been working on building and selling dashboard templates together for the past 6 to 7 years. I do most of the coding and design, but Stella helps me with everything else, from side projects to testing, to support, to copywriting, to marketing, etc. I've started with a really unique story, you know, because I got my first computer back in the 90s. I'm sure I'm the only one that has ever done that. I got pretty hooked up by then. I started creating and experimenting with programming with BASIC, actually. Later on, I moved to the internet. I joined the revolution,
Oh
and
man.
I got really excited with building websites because it was something that really triggered something in my mind, because I could just code something and see the results afterwards immediately. So after building my first pages, with all the animated images, etc., we used back then,
Marquees,
I
many
yeah.
marquees.
Exactly. I went to study computer science back in 2005, when I spent the next few years trying to earn a living out of it. I started building and working web apps with local businesses, and later on I discovered Envato back in 2009, when I published the first admin theme ever, called, for me, of course, called Easy Admin, and it was actually a one-page template. It was really simple, but it showed me the way. Later on, for about 4 years, till 2013, I do it mostly part-time or as a hobby. But at 2013, I get into it and started working on it full time. And then Stella joined me and helped me build Pixel Cave.
I love
And
that you started
yeah,
with basic. That
yeah,
immediately
I built basic programs with basic.
me too. Like my first language was GW Basic on DOS,
Oh,
and yeah, those are the days, right?
yeah,
go
it was
go
great.
to 20, go to 30. When you say easy admin, your first theme showed you the way.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means that when it went live, it started getting a couple of sales, and it was really exciting for me back then, because it showed me that I could build something, a project I would like to work on, and that it could be put up in a marketplace and just get the exposure out of nothing. So that really was something back then for me, and it showed the way that I could continue doing that in the future.
What was the Envato market like? But I mean, I assume that Envato was kind of the big the market leader market even then. If I know that there was like DeviantArt and
Yeah,
and
it's
Envato. Like I don't really remember what else there was back then. But what did the market look like?
it was far simpler back then, and I believe that they started with Flash then, if I remember correctly. It was a marketplace for Flash-based templates. Then they created ThemeForest, and then more followed. The good thing about it was that there was demand, because there weren't many marketplaces back then. So people from the start got hooked and started trying to find templates and themes that they could get. So the good thing back then was that you had immediate exposure when you started out, which was really hard back then, as it is today, of course, more or less. But that was the good part.
You mentioned kind of getting exposure on the market. I imagine it's a lot harder to get started on any market, much less Envato these days. Just with so much, it seems like so much more saturation. Yeah,
I think that it's really hard for someone to find a quality theme in there, because he could easily get lost.
Because you said you were working corporately as a programmer. You were, university trained, and then you went to get programming jobs. So like, what was the threshold or the light bulb moment where you said, okay, now I'm going to be an entrepreneur instead? Like this can support me, or this is what I want to do. Like, what was the...
Okay, to tell you the truth, I believe that it was something that came out from the beginning. So back in 2005, I really had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something on the internet and be able to earn a living. and that was really hard because I didn't know where to start, and I did experiment a lot for many years, but all that experiments guide me to Envato. Someone else could follow another path, but I think that the fact that I was trying for many years to find a way led me there. Even so, it took me 4 whole years to start working full-time seriously on it. So I think that was a bit of a mistake. I should have started sooner, but it's okay.
Why should you have started sooner?
Because I believe that I lost 4 years trying to do other things as well. And if I had started sooner, I would be in a better position, and I wouldn't have, I believe, to work so hard, especially back in 2013. And not actually to work so hard, to work and reach the limit where I could support and earn a living by it, because it was so tense. If Pro UI, for example, back in 2014 wasn't a success from the beginning, I don't know if I will be able to continue doing so. So right now, I'm thinking that if I had started sooner, working on it and slowly, I could do a better transition. But in 2013, I have put all my bets on it. So if it didn't work, it would work the other way.
Right.
So that's why I believe I made a mistake back then. But I learned something from it. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think made it successful? Made your stuff successful so fast?
I guess I will say the cliche, but that's the truth. I can say something else about it, that I really liked building dashboards. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to create something that was working correctly. Especially back then, we had the mobile browsers, which were a disaster. Okay, yeah, definitely, along with Internet Explorer 8 and 9. So you had to worry about so many stuff. But I think that what helped make the projects successful at the end in their lifetime was that I really liked building them and delivering the best I could based on the knowledge I had back then and now, because I always continue learning, and I hope I will continue doing so every year.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the reasons that I have reached out to you and that I use your stuff is that your stuff seems kind of like an outlier to me in the context of most themes, and I think especially in this, like in a setting of extendsConf, like most people are Craft CMS developers and sort of take this very craftsmanly, sort of artisanal approach to code, and there's not a lot of love for themes in this particular circle. Not a lot of people making themes, probably, nobody using themes because you dig into some of these markets and the thumbnails are flashy and beautiful, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to take that website off the shelf and use it, but then you do, and it turns out to be really disappointing under the hood. And I've had the opposite experience with your stuff, but then again, you are one of the most successful sellers on the whole marketplace, from what I can tell. So, like, did you feel in the beginning that the stuff you were producing was different than the majority of what was out there on the marketplace?
I didn't think a lot about it because I believe we focused mainly on our products, getting feedback, making them better, and one thing led to another, but through many years, so it's something that you might see now that, for example, a template might have the success it has now. but you couldn't see it back then because it was a process which took years. And no, I don't feel it. I just work on the projects, and as we could work on them and sales were coming in and we were able to make a living out of it, we moved on and tried to build on top of them the best product we could make.
I mean, do you what is your impression of the market at large? Like, is because I feel kind of I don't know, it feels very haughty, as like we've talked about, of me as a developer to kind of look at the theme marketplace and go, none of that is any good. And like, is it a fair criticism to levy of the theme marketplace in general, that just most of it is really bad?
Well, I can't blame anyone, of course, because what should save you time now takes it from you, because if you have to invest so much time to find the quality theme to work for you, have you saved time or you're wasted time in between? I don't know. So it's completely understandable. On the other side, I believe that if someone finds something that works for him, then he stops looking. For example, we have many people that keep choosing our templates and they haven't looked elsewhere. So they find that they can work for them and they kept using them. So that's a good thing. But to reach that point that someone could find something, a product that work from him, might take a while. And many people might give up and say that, oh my God, I can't find anything to work for me. The market is crap, and moves on. But I think that that's a lost chance for both authors and the developers that are looking for such projects, you know?
Oh, you're so right, because that's exactly that's exactly what happened with me and with your themes, right? Because I was using Bootstrap for a while, and then I was using like Foundation back in the Foundation 2, 3, 4 era, and then I like found One UI, and One UI was cool because I both liked the design and felt like the code was sort of modular. And then I kind of went from, then I started following you. And so I went to Dashmix just because I knew you. And then Codebase came, and I knew about Codebase just because I was using One UI, and then I looked at Codebase, and Codebase was great. And then I like have, anytime I need to prototype an app-ish, dashboard-ish thing, I just like go pull Codebase off the shelf. I mean, I even have my own repo where I track this stuff. And you're right, I have not looked for another app scaffold or dashboard theme since Codebase. And I'm, you know, maybe the next great one has come and it's even better than your stuff, and I would have no idea because I just like found the one that I thought was good and started using it. And to your point, did kind of invest in it, right? Like I've spent time like taking your components, but for example, Codebase ships jQuery, and I don't want jQuery in my projects. And so I will like take your components and then take jQuery out, and whatever interaction it was doing, you know, whatever like menu slider or pop-up thing, I'll just like replace your jQuery with some Alpine or with some Vue or whatever. And so now I even have like my own derivative Codebase theme. And yeah, you're right. It felt like I found the needle in the haystack, and then I stopped looking.
That worked for you, yeah, and then you stopped looking. So you could save time and move on your project, right?
Speaking of jQuery, you know, that's another thing that kind of attracted me to your stuff and differentiated Pixel Cave's themes apart from a lot of the other stuff in the market, is that so many themes seem to be really behind the times in terms of the sorts of libraries and plugins that they employ. And I think one of the things that kind of made me take your stuff seriously was that, you know, as you were releasing new themes and as you were iterating on those themes, like you started bundling like less files for your CSS, and that was better than normal CSS. But that whole period where you were bundling less, I was like, oh, please use Sass. And then at some point you switched and you started bundling Sass, and a lot of your jQuery over time kind of morphed into more vanilla JavaScript. And so if somebody's watching, you know, your themes, or even just landing on your themes in a marketplace, there's like these hints that you are paying attention to newer, better front end stuff that you don't see in a lot of themes. So yeah, how do you kind of see the process of keeping up to date with the latest, greatest front end stuff? And how many complaints do you get from jerks like me about code base still using jQuery?
Okay. I think it's really important to look at trending outside and move on, but also find the perfect balance between your existing customers, the market demand, and the support maintain process of your themes. So for everyone that is talking about jQuery, oh my God, is this still the case? Let's say that the latest official Bootstrap stable version uses jQuery right now, Bootstrap 4, right? So when you're building a Bootstrap theme, the obvious thing you're going to do, even now for many other theme makers, is to include it in their theme, because it is officially still not for long. Bootstrap 5 comes along, but it's still a tech that many people use. So it's really hard when you started back then, around 6 to 7 years ago, and had that ecosystem of Bootstrap and jQuery and the whole planet. Most of the developers were using those technologies. It was really simple. You just need to include Bootstrap, jQuery, the popular plugins, and then you could work on your project and innovate on it. Afterwards, after the whole situation with the JavaScript frameworks that broke actually the market apart and made it even harder to pick a side, because if you were trying to pick a side, many other people wouldn't prefer your project. So you need to find the middle solution where you could create a project that many people would be able to use, but with any framework they want. So shipping code base or other themes still with jQuery doesn't mean that you have to use it. You can extract the design. The design is there, is HTML and CSS, and put it in any project you like. So we try to make it as easy as possible to extract the JavaScript section out of the template, or make it easier for someone that is familiar with JavaScript to extract the main pieces we have created, for example, toggling the main sidebar, toggling the overlay, and functionality like this into their workflow. So we try to always find the middle solution, move on with the evolving technologies, but that takes time in such a market. And always it's a really major case that you have to take into consideration how you will support and maintain what you have included in your template. Because if, for example, you have created a template and sell it, and you have a couple, some dozen or hundreds of sales, you might not fill it, but when you have a template with thousands of sales, then things get a bit rough, because when you release an update, an email hits 1,000 of inboxes, and then you might get so much support back. So you have to be careful about what are you going to include, what changes are you going to make, and meet as many expectations as you can. So this is why you show a slow process from less to SaaS. In between, we have created an AngularJS version that got scrapped because AngularJS got scrapped. And this is why this year we also released the pure view-based version of One UI. So we try to give options, but that takes time in a market like that. You can just throw away everything and implement something else. I think that jQuery is slowing down a lot. And we can see that with Bootstrap 5, we're also planning in the future to remove the core functionality. So you just have JavaScript and a few functions which you can use to put in every framework you want. But of course, that requires from each developer to be a bit familiar with JavaScript and be able to do it. That's a setback, but I don't think it can happen any other way, because it's really hard based on the workforce every team has to keep supporting so many versions, frameworks, and technologies. So we always try to find the right balance and do the best we can to satisfy as many people as possible. Unfortunately, that's not the case always, but at least we're there and stand.
I don't know. You keep selling themes, so you're doing a decent job. I mean, I guess I imagine that there's a huge piece of the pie chart of your customer base that still wants to download a theme, FTP it to their server, like change some words, and that's great. Right. And they don't care, they don't.
So this explains a lot about the structure.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because as we're talking, I see this ladder. Like I'm on the third store of a building, and I see this ladder come and like prop up against my window, and so I
everything okay?
I hope that I'm not about to be invaded by through my window. But we'll see.
Okay, be careful. If you need any help,
hey,
let me know.
If I get abducted, at least I have a witness.
I
don't know.
Don't worry.
I don't know who runs abductions at 8 in the morning, but
yeah, so cruel,
But we're fixing to find out. Yeah. So actually, it's even kind of startling for me to be reminded that Bootstrap is still part of your themes. Like they're technically Bootstrap themes, and I sort of started using your themes as my sort of go-to prototyping themes instead of Bootstrap because I didn't like Bootstrap. But then Bootstrap is in your thing. But I don't think of it that way because I just go to your live preview, your documentation, and I, inspect something and I copy and paste it where I want, and and it just works. And it doesn't ever occur to me that I'm under the hood using this Bootstrap thing that I don't actually like. So
we're grateful for that. Thank you for your support. Okay, stay with us.
Yeah.
Bootstrap is really nice. No, I think that Bootstrap is really nice, and sorry, I interrupted you. I think that Bootstrap is really nice, and it will continue to stay popular framework. It worked for many people, but as always, of course, based on your project and your case, it might not work the way you would like to. What I find really refreshing about Bootstrap back then was that when SaaS was introduced, and less before, if I remember correctly, I find that it was really, really easy to extract anything that I don't like. And we still promote that functionality in the documentation of our projects as well, because it's really easy to extract anything you don't like and keep only the vitals. So at first, for many people, it might seem like a really big framework, but if you take it, you can easily put it to work exactly the way you want. So I think that it will continue to be a popular framework.
So you, because talking about how Codebase and even jQuery being part of your themes makes them accessible to so many people. This is a weird question, but like I imagine that is important for sales, for like driving people to your products, and it's probably also important for success, for people being successful at using your products. Where is the like balance of sales versus support, and what things drive sales versus what things make for more or less support, and how do you decide how to build for those different factors?
Okay, I believe that the most important factor is the feedback we get. Of course, we can't integrate every feature that is being asked, but we collect feedback, we take everything into consideration, and according to it, we build upon and deliver new updates, along with the MUS variable, which means we will update it if we're able to maintain it, update it, and support it.
Ooh,
so it's something like,
I'm writing that down. MUS,
yeah,
maintain, updates. That's my new
that's
motto.
Right. Along with Stella, and based on the feedback we get, we sit down, analyze everything, and I mean about the bigger features. For example, a Laravel starter kit, which every template that we support now has one. But before we edit it, we get down, analyze everything, and we see we're able to maintain it in the long run. How hard is it to keep it updated, and would be easy for the people that uses it? How does affect them? And if we're able to support it. So do we have the knowledge we need to support such a feature? Because, for example, when we edit the Laravel starter kit version, we started getting many emails that we didn't before. And that's in the same package everyone was getting. It's the same case with the Vue version of 1. We released it as a separate version, but also afterwards, everybody that already had one UI got it for free. But we didn't include it until we were sure that we're good to go, you know? And I think that's the way we think. We gather feedback, we see what we need to learn, what we need to integrate, and how we can handle all those things. And based on the needs of potential customers and existing ones, we decide how to move forward. I believe something like that.
Do sales and support usually point in the same direction? Like, or do they fight with each other?
Yeah.
Like,
that's a great question. Yeah. I think that they might fight sometimes. They might fight because if we start getting many mail requests, we might bottleneck our creative process. So we aren't able to move forward and keep building and updating the template. So it might get less features, less updates, and that will definitely affect sales, new sales as well. So I think that they fight each other. It's really hard to find the balance, but I think that through years you manage instinctively to get it to work.
So, well, actually, let's talk about Tailkit, because
okay, great.
Again, you know, I get really excited now that I follow you. I get really excited whenever you make some indication that you're, you know, adopting some some new tech. And I guess the more we're talking, the more I realize there's two reasons that I kind of get excited. Because I also tend to be much slower than the popular curve on picking up new tech. Like I loved Vue.js from version 0.9 or something. I was playing around with it, but I didn't roll out a project to production until Vue 2 point something. And it's the same with Sass. I didn't roll Sass into my projects for probably a couple of years, and because I want to, before I roll something into a production project, I want to make sure not only that I can support it, but that I can onboard other people to support it. Out of the, if I have to hand this project to somebody else, not in my circles, that they can probably take it and do well by my client. And so whenever you talk about rolling some new tech, some Sass or some Vue or whatever into your themes, I get excited because it means I'll be using it whenever I use your themes to prototype stuff. But it also gives me the sense of oh, if John can put this in a Envato theme, it's ready. The world, if John is using Vue in a theme, it means there's enough Vue out there that I can start, trusting that I can put Vue in my stuff. And so, so you see Tailwind come out, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna build a thing with Tailwind.
That's right. So I started getting to know Tailwind CSS last year. So I started playing with it, and this is something I do when something comes out, just to get a feeling of what it is, what it could done. So I can get an idea and see what we can do as well in the future. So I find it really refreshing. I really like that you are working with your styles directly in your HTML. And it's really nice now that you can do that with Alpine.js, for example, to work on your HTML with JavaScript. So you just can add classes and work with it. And I was really, really excited because after so many years working in Bootstrap, it was really refreshing for me. And I understand at that point that that's what many people feel when they start using it. So I wanted to create something, and because we always wanted to put a project out on our own, we find it the perfect timing and said that, okay, we're going to build a project based on Tailwind CSS. We didn't know at that time what exactly would be the final product look like. Okay, we explored various paths along the way, but that was the point when we said that we are going to do it. And actually, I think when we registered the domain tailkit.com is when it locked down to our head. It was the beginning of this year. So and a couple of months afterwards, we started working on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you're sort of deciding, what this new thing is that you're going to build, and thinking, okay, I have a huge customer base that still loves my bootstrappy, jQuery things, but also I see all of these directions that web development is going, and so you're sort of figuring out how to position Pixel Cave.
That's right. It's about the balance we talked before.
Yeah. So I mean, is that a thing that you're actively thinking about? Is not just you wanting to use the newer tech because it's nicer, but are you thinking about how to keep Pixel Cave relevant?
Yeah, we'd like actually to how to say it, to differentiate our products and offer various solutions for various projects, because everyone started using different JS frameworks, different technologies, and we saw the need that to keep us relevant, we have to create more diverse products that are guided for different tech stacks. So Tailkit was a perfect fit, and our first thought was that we need to start building a project with Tailwind CSS because we want to save people time when they're building their project. We wanted to create something that wasn't going to be constrained by the technologies. For example, you wouldn't like to get a Bootstrap jQuery based theme and just starting extracting if that's something might not save you time. And we want to create a design that you can take and put wherever you like. And that's really important. And I think that was the direction we followed from the beginning. And that's what made Tailkit a reality now. So I think it's a great time for the front-end environment. And I think it's the best time ever to create a web project right now. It wasn't so easy back then. It was way harder. And now the way I see it with Tailkit in perspective, I think it's really great when you can get into it, get your starting point, and just starting copying over the design. It's not about just copying something, but it's about it is something that enables the developer to build the UI way faster and put it into the tech stack he is using. So that's really great because you can create a clean modern design easily and take it from there. And I think that it is really fast and really unique way of working. And I really like the Tailwind UI, the structure they used. We inspired by it to create our preview panes for the components. But on top of that, on top of creating and designing those UI components, we wanted to build the web app around them. And now, as it is, it's just a starting point. We want to do even more and enable you to search and find easily the component you need, manipulate it in some ways, or use built-in tools to create easier the structure for your web app. So, for example, right now you can get it, use a starter kit because we have starter kits inside for HTML plain. We're using the HTML playground from Tailwind CSS. They created a repository, but we're integrating in there Tailkit's configuration, and the same thing we did with other frameworks such as Laravel, Vue.js, React, and Angular. So we used the Vue CLI, the Create React app, and Angular CLI to integrate Tailkits and Tailwind inside along with purge CSS functionality. So you get a great starting point. You can just npm install the dependencies and start working. You can directly copy and paste the layout you want, and then you can start building your pages. I think that's really, really great. I'm really happy because with Tailkit, I can eventually focus on the design aspect because I spent so much time working on so many other stuff than design itself, because it all started for the design, and then you're into Vue.js stuff and Laravel, etc., and you're where I'm going now. So it's nice to have options, but because I really love design, with Tailkit I can focus on that aspect as well, but I can fulfill my other need about the web dev stuff because I like to learn as much as possible, and also building the UI components, designing them, and also building the web app that surrounds them and support the user of Tailkit. So I find it really refreshing that I can focus on those two main things, and that's really something that we couldn't do before.
How has the self-publishing process been? That's kind of it seems like a big step. You've been selling on Envato for your whole career as a company, and then you move to your own custom platform. I guess it's you're using Gumroad.
Yeah, that's right.
But selling on your own site, on your own platform, what has that transition been like?
It's something new for us. We're going to see how it goes in general, but we're very, very excited about the opportunities that lie ahead. You have many positive aspects when working on the market like Envato. but you also have other positive aspects when working. It's all about the ups and downs for each case. But we really like that we're able now to work on both aspects as well, on a platform and on our own, and move forward that way, because I think that we will be able to be more creative and build better products in the long run.
How so? Like, what enables that?
Well, I think that applies in general when you're working on any platform. I have many other people working on selling tutorials, for example, or video courses on other platform, popular ones, more or less experience the same issues all over again. You're actually bound by the infrastructure they have, and what you can do is limited by that. So the algorithm they're using, the way that you get exposure or you don't get exposure, are things that actually interfere with the creative work you do. But on the other side, just like I said, you get exposure out of nowhere. When you're, that's right. When you're self-publishing on your own, you have to find your audience and reach out to people and say, look, we're these people and creating that for that reason. Would you like to test it out? And it's way harder. But it's about the ups and downs. Platform can hold you back based on what they offer and based on the exposure you get, which can be really good at times and really bad at others. So that's really restricting.
Yeah.
But it's up to each one, the way you want to work, what you want to achieve, and how you would like to work.
I wonder if we will start seeing Tailwind themes pop up on Envato now. Or maybe that's already happening. I don't know. Are you seeing that kind of?
I think yeah, I have seen some of them. So I'm sure that they will actually start coming in on Envato and on the internet in general. People will start. I also have noticed many tools people are building out there for Tailwind CSS, so it's really catching up. But the way it's structured, I think that you definitely might want to follow along with a framework when you're building a template for Tailwind, because it might be a bit hard to deliver many examples and pages when you're working with plain HTML and Tailkit. It would be a nightmare to maintain it. So you definitely want a component strategy behind it to be able to deliver a template. It's challenging, and we'll see how it goes in the future. I don't know.
How your component strategy with Tailkit, because you said you're doing Vue and React, and do you have Alpine components in there as well?
Well, yeah, there are a few components like the layout ones, or drop down or modal, which when you preview them, you see them actually working. But you need to implement JavaScript functionality to make them work. But we have integrated Alpine.js markup code as well, so you can actually change tabs in the code editor. And if you choose the Alpine.js version, you just copy it and throw it in your project. If you're using Alpine, that's great. And I think that many people will start using it because using Tailwind CSS along with Alpine makes perfect sense, especially for apps or websites that aren't so big and just need the main functionality and features Alpine can give you. So it's the best of both worlds, and not all projects are super heavy or have more than 100 pages. Or I think it's a great combination. So we're giving away, along with plain HTML markup, where we have inline comments about you need to toggle that class to open the dropdown or close the other. We're giving the Alpine.js version, which just works when you throw it in starter kits. At least in Laravel and HTML, which the Alpine is already included. You can remove it, of course, if you like. But on Vue, React, and Angular, you might have to do your own class toggling, at least for those components.
Yeah, and I don't know, how does that, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say that you can even use Alpine in your Vue, but that's something that you wouldn't make much sense. But it made sense for Tailkit because when you want to give away the code, but also preview it, and you want to use Alpine, you have to use it to do it through Vue.js. So, okay. Yeah.
What?
So I said that in starter kits for Vue, React, and Angular, you don't have Alpine inside. So you have to copy and paste and create the JS functionality for yourself, okay? But you could even in Vue use Alpine.js, even if it's not the correct way to do it. But I had to do it in the Tailkit web app because I want to preview the Alpine.js functionality through Vue.
Oh,
No?
and because the preview app is running Vue, but
that's right.
The live markup is running Alpine.
That's right. So it's something you can do. I don't think that you would like to do in production,
but would not want to,
in that specific case, it was really handy that it was able to make it work through Vue, because I was building Vue app and wanted to preview Alpine.js code.
Yeah,
so it's a win.
I actually have there. I had one project where they, for a brief period, were running Alpine and Vue on top of each other, because I was moving it from, I had like prototyped it in Alpine, and then I was spinning up a real Vue app behind it, and so there, you know, as I was kind of, that's the nice thing actually about building things in that componentized sort of way, is that you, like, I could take my components one at a time and move them from Alpine over to like true Vue components. And it wasn't the best story for, you know, performance, because I had two front-end libraries on top of each other. But in terms of the developer experience, it felt very sturdy, because everything was just in its own component, and I could just migrate one at a time. And I definitely don't, you know, wouldn't recommend that, but it was, I don't know, it was fine. It was surprisingly fine.
Well, I find that many people that would like to build something always thinking about to make it perfect and make it work the best way it could. But in reality, you're always going to end up to use something that you shouldn't. It doesn't feel right. But I don't think that there is a project out there that doesn't do that. So, for example, okay, for my specific case, I wanted to preview that code because that's the code you're getting. So I have to make it work. It's a really specific case. But other than that, in some projects, there are always some hacks that you have to do. And let's not talk about design. Design now, it's way easier to test now than it was a few years back, when everything was a nightmare. You had to apply so many hacks in your styles that from point upwards, it just felt perfectly normal, because it would work other way. So that might be the case in some projects, and don't let that hold you down. I think that if someone looking into it, don't let it hold you down. Go make it work, and you can improve it as time goes.
That's like almost a perfect place to like wrap it up. That this sort of sagely advice.
If I could give an advice, it would be that, okay, so keep on it, build what you want, and it might feel frustrating if you want to build something that takes time, because you feel that you aren't making any progress. For example, Tailkit took 6 months to get its first release. It was a long time. So in many days, you might feel that you don't do any progress, but that's not the case. Just keep on it, do a little bit of what you can each day. Either it is a few hours or full time onto it. Don't overdo it. If I can say something about it, don't overdo it, because if you overburn for a few days, you're gonna lose the next week. It happens to me over and over again. When I work way too hard for a couple of days and I feel confident that I'm moving really, really fast, then I slow down so hard that I waste that. So keep a steady schedule, do the work you have to do, and when you're building a project, either it is a side project or a main project, just show up and do the work you need each day, and try to put it out there as soon as possible. I didn't want and have talked about it with Stella so much, and we tried to release it way sooner. The first estimation was for July, really, really optimistic, but it's But
that was before the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. So put it out there when it is ready, and then you can come back and work on it and make it better. But it's really important. The first step is really important, because it's very easy to not get your project and put it out there, get it done and put that there. The first release is always
the second part is also important, because that has been a thing that has differentiated you and made you successful on Envato, is that so many themes do just publish a thing and then never touch it again. And you have supported your themes over a period of like 3-4 years now, and I think that that reputation has probably made a huge impact in people finding you and people buying your stuff. So the second piece where you go back and make it better is very important also.
It's really important also. But after you first release your project, it gives you motivation to keep on. So it's a little bit easier. Up to the point before your release, it's really hard because you feel that no progress is done. But I think it's really important to support your project as well. Really important. When someone buys a product, you want to have it updated for as long as possible.
Maintain update support.
Yeah, US.
I think that's such. I hope that that a bunch of us will be inspired by that, because like I say, there's not a whole lot of themes action in the Craft CMS world. But I don't know, maybe some people listening today will get inspired and start building some themes. But like there is a large thriving plugin marketplace, and I think all of this advice that you give is very applicable to any product that you're making one developer for another. So well, cool. Thank you so much for.
Thank you very much for having me. It was my pleasure. Thanks a lot. And as we always say, happy coding. Wish you all the best and happy coding.
Happy coding.